What's going on, Perform24 family? Levi Jaeckel here, back in the gym, back at Perform24 in Tampa, Florida, and back with another video. Today's video is going to be a slight twist on some of our normal content. If you typically watch my content, this is a training-based channel, right? So a lot of our content is about, well, all of our content is about training. This video is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to be talking about the business side of Perform24. Specifically, I'm going to be talking about what 2020 has done and how Perform24 has been impacted in 2020. I'm doing this for a couple reasons. One, as like a historical video log for myself, right? I would kill right now to have a 2019 kind of recap video that I could watch, right? Just because so many things changed in 2020, I would love to be inside my own head and seeing where I was, what I was thinking a year ago and what I was expecting for the upcoming year. Two, this is historical, right? So the things that we've experienced in 2020 hopefully will never happen again. But I kind of want to capture that message, capture that story. And then three, this might help a few of you. Now, I will admit that what I'm about to talk about is specific to me, it's specific to my business, it's specific to Perform24. This is a case study of one. I run a very specific business. Some of this might not apply to a regular training business. Some of this stuff might not even apply to the gym down the road from me, let alone somebody in a completely different geographic area. However, if there is even one or two nuggets that somebody might pick up that they can learn from or apply in their own business, then that's a win. So that is why I'm not just recording this video and saving it for myself. I'm recording this video and posting it on a public forum in the hopes that maybe it does actually help somebody and make an impact. Okay, so 2020, rewind the clock 12 months. If I'm sitting here December 9th, 2019, this is kind of where Perform24 is at. Okay, so 2019 was our steadiest, our most consistent, and our most predictable year to date. And I'm going to show those actual revenue numbers right now, but you can see for the most part, the year is really, really steady with a couple months that were bumped up, right? The clients that we work with a couple different population groups. We work with adults all year round, and then we work with seasonal clients. So our seasonal clients are athletes, depending on their sport. They're in here at different times of the year based off of their off season. The same goes for high school athletes. So the high school athletes, there are different points in the year where we work with more high school athletes than normal. And that's kind of reflected in those revenue numbers, right? So at different points of the year, we're just working with more people. And that's the reason why some months are up. But overall, it's pretty flat, right? It's pretty consistent. January and February 2019 were very strong months. Those were two of the three strongest months that we had in 2019. And that will also play a little bit of a role when we compare that to the 2020 numbers. Last year, last fall, in the fall of 2019, I reached out to a mentor and I approached him about a professional, formal consulting relationship. It was a 4-month contract that I signed with him, and our objective was to kind of clean up some of the fundamental and foundational parts of Perform24. Again, like we're coming off of our most steady year of all time, but I also knew that there's more in the tank. So I invested in somebody that I respected and somebody that has done this not only in his own gym, but with dozens of gyms across the nation. And so I started working with him right at the end of October, okay? Also, it's important to say that at the end of October and at the beginning, or at the end of 2019 and the beginning of 2020, I was working with 2 part-time coaches. They were helping me here in the gym, and that's an important factor. So I knew that there was a big life event coming up in my life in 2020, regardless of what happened globally, regardless of what happened nationally. I personally, as an individual, had a big life event coming in early 2020. That big life event was that my wife and I were expecting a baby. And not only that, we're expecting our second baby in a very short amount of time. As it turns out, our 2 kids are 15 months apart. So by the time baby Emma came around, we had a 15-month-old, right? So you can imagine 2 really young kids. That's a whole nother layer to life outside of the gym that I knew was coming very quickly. So the guy that I was working with as a consultant, he was helping me kind of streamline and maximize and kind of like trim the fat of Perform24, because my life was about to get a lot more chaotic, and so we needed as much margin in my responsibility as possible. And so he was working with me just to kind of make Perform24 run more efficiently. That was our objective. So let's fast forward now to January 1. You've got a pretty good idea of where Perform24 was at in 2019 and kind of where my head was at and what I was doing working on the business. January 1 approaches, and January 1, our January and our February numbers weren't quite matching or pacing the January and February from 2019. Now remember, January and February of 2019 were really strong months, but even so, we were still kind of underperforming in January, February of 2020. There was a lot of external variables going on, right? So I was actively changing the way that my business was running, and on top of that, between December 1st and February 15th, both of the part-time coaches that I was working with took separate jobs. So one moved across the country and the other took a job with a Major League Baseball organization. I just say all that to tell you that there was a lot going on in the business outside of what was about to happen. Looking back at it now, it is pretty crazy that all these things were happening at the same exact time, but that's life, right? That's the reality of the situation. And then the lockdowns happen, right? So we all know how March 2020 played out. Kind of took all of us by surprise. We didn't think it was gonna be that big of a deal. All of a sudden, it's a big deal. March 12th is the day that Tampa schools sent their kids home, right? So March 12th was the day that it was like, we're starting the shutdown process. March 12th was also the exact day that my wife and I had baby Emma. So we are in the hospital having baby Emma. All of the excitement and all of the craziness that happens with being in the hospital having a baby. If you are a parent, you understand how crazy that is. There are 15-minute segments that seem like 2 hours, and then there are 2 hours of time that feel like 15 minutes. Things are just crazy, right? At the end of the day, after all of that stuff, I look at my phone and realize like, okay, this is coming right towards us. Like, this is happening here in our neighborhood, right? This isn't something that's happening anywhere else. This is happening in our neighborhood. So all at the same time, my home life totally got flipped upside down and totally evolved, and my professional life got flipped upside down. A couple days later, I think it was the 16th or the 18th, gyms were shut down in Florida. So I had already scheduled to be out of the gym. I had already scheduled a little bit of time off to get home and to get settled and to start this new life as a family of 4. And so I had a big decision to make. And I made a pretty drastic decision. I decided that I was going to immediately cancel everybody's membership. Everybody's canceled. I sent a big email to all of my clients. I told them like, hey, we're shut down. We don't know how long this is gonna be. We don't know how long we're gonna be shut down for. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cancel everybody's membership now, today. You don't have to ask me to do that. I'm not gonna put you in a position. I'm not gonna ask you to continue to support the business. I'm not gonna put you in that position. I'm gonna take control of this. I'm canceling everything. Now, what I am going to offer, I'm gonna offer a single service. That service is you send me the equipment that you have access to, if any. If you don't have any, that's fine. And I'm going to program for you every single day for the next month. So basically you have a monthly membership of remote training programs from me. Send me your equipment. I'm going to program specifically for you every single day. And I made this a daily training program for a couple reasons. Mainly, all of our routines had been flipped upside down, right? So all of my working adults, they were all of a sudden working from home. Their offices were closed. Same thing for all my high school students. They couldn't go to school. They couldn't go to practice. So everybody's schedule got flipped on its head. And my objective with the remote training service was to give them a daily task that would be kind of an anchor for their new schedule, right? So while everything else is kind of in flux, everything else is shifting, you've got one pillar nailed down, and that is what your training activity is going to be for that day. I priced that remote training program or that remote training membership at a rate that was lower than most of my clients' monthly service, like their training service with me. So it was a pretty good deal for a lot of people. It did save a lot of people money, when they're working their month-to-month finances. They weren't spending quite as much for my training. I've got great clients, like really, really good clients. And almost across the board, everybody opted into that service. Not everybody did, which is totally fine, but I think that was a fair offering for them, and they saw that and they took advantage of that. And so it was kind of a win-win for us both. Now, that was only the start of the decisions that I was going to have to make over the next couple months. So I canceled everybody's membership, right? And I'm going to show you the March revenue. So basically I had like half of March kind of as normal, and then the second half of March started to nosedive. So you can see those revenue numbers starting to come down, especially compared to 2019. I didn't at the time, thankfully, honestly, thankfully, I didn't have to make a decision on what to do with employees. That situation kind of resolved itself earlier in the year. So I decided to shut down the gym completely, okay? There were a lot of reasons for me to stay home, right? We have a new baby. We have a 15-month-old. My wife is still recovering from giving birth, right? And so there were a lot of reasons for me to be home. And basically what I did is I just put the business of Perform24 into a coma. There are monthly expenses to run this business, obviously, like we've got technology services and different memberships and, all kinds of just monthly reoccurring charges. Basically what I did is I got on the phone and called every single one of those services and just put everything on pause. I asked them if they would work with me. I told them that I don't want to cancel, I just want to pause everything and, just kind of put Perform24 to sleep. And so what I tried to do is I knew that my revenue wasn't going to pace what I typically make, right? And so what I tried to do is I just tried to bring my overhead down to a point where it basically would even out. And that's what I worked on. I went crazy trying to bring my overhead expenses down as quickly as I could. This is why when I told you that this applies to me and it might not apply to every business, these are the reasons why. I'm a one-man show. I am very nimble, right? I can change extremely quickly, and I'm personally not afraid to do those types of things. So, when the world changes, I'm not afraid to change with it. And I don't have a huge clunky business behind me that forces me to make decisions. I can turn really, really quickly, which is what I did. Now, I understand that not everybody is in that position, but that was the position that I was in. So you can see the March revenue start to decrease, and April was even lower. So April, I didn't have any in-person training whatsoever. Everything was done remotely at that lower price point. And you can see my revenue in April got crushed. So I was 78% down from April 2019. So that's obviously very significant, and a lot of you probably experienced something very similar. Like I said, there were a lot of reasons for me to be at home, and I really kind of doubled down and tried to maximize that. I kind of looked at this as hey, this is a gift for me. My wife is on maternity leave. She works a corporate job. She has benefits that allows her time with the new babies. I am self-employed, right? If I don't work, I don't make money, plain and simple. However, I was kind of given a gift. I was given a gift to be home. I was given a gift to be home all day, every day. And I took that as a gift. And so I stayed home. You know, I programmed remotely via laptop, but I stayed home and I didn't try to change that. I just let that be. And I knew then, and I know now, that was the best decision that I could have made. There is not a single thing that I would change about that opportunity. Had to take a little break for a second to lose a layer. You know, we don't wear hoodies very often here in Florida. That's a very rare occasion. And when we do wear hoodies, we don't wear them for very long because that sun comes up and it starts warming up real fast. So let's talk about the summer. May 18th was the day that the governor of Florida allowed gyms to reopen. The big decision that I made is that I would be opening intentionally conservative. We had, I think, a 50% capacity or something like that. And I built a system that we'd be operating at around legal, like 36% capacity or something like that. I also compressed my training availability by quite a bit. So my overall weekly hours of training availability dropped by like almost 30%. I was only going to be working morning hours, 6 a.m. to 12, and then each hour time slot was going to have a very limited capacity. 18th was our reopen day, and so we had a week and a half or so of May remaining. And you can see that in those May numbers start to creep back up. Still getting smoked compared to 2019, but headed in the right direction. June 2020, this summer, is where things start to get real interesting, I think, right? So if you think about kind of like the trajectory over the last 6 months, I've been working with a mentor to change some of the fundamental pieces of the business. I had a little bit of a personnel adjustment as well. And then obviously we got shut down, right? So massive hurdle with that one. But then I took weeks and months really to just scale down and to eliminate a lot of the things with my business. And so when June 1st hit, June 1st was kind of like a fresh start, right? So we're gonna have a whole month to try out all of these new procedures and new strategies that we put into place. So like we talked about, hours are decreased. The hours that we do have are limited capacity. I don't have help. And also the pro clientele that I would typically work with, those guys were in completely new situations with their own team. So, you know, their COVID protocols were very tight. And so they had like very limited exposure tolerance, which I completely understand and I completely respect. So a lot of things have changed, but when June was all said and done, and I'll show you those numbers, our June revenue was getting close to those 2019 numbers. Obviously June 2020 was still underneath June 2019. However, they're getting very close. Let me show you what has happened since July 1st all the way through November. So we proved a new system, and this is extremely exciting for me. Okay, so a couple interesting things, and let me tell you this, I completely understand that just my geography is a massive factor to this, and this cannot be understated. But the fact that I live in Florida and that my business is in Florida is a massive, massive factor, right? This is not going to happen to a gym in Seattle. I've got buddies that run gyms in Seattle. This isn't going to happen in California, but my geography is a major variable to what I've been able to do this year. I understand that not a lot of people have that opportunity, and you know, for better or worse, that's just the reality of the situation. So a lot of my buddies have had their gyms closed, and I'm extremely empathetic to that, and I'm extremely fortunate that that was not my situation. A couple big things to talk about here. So we can legitimately compare 6 months worth of data now. So we have all of June, July, August, September, October, and November to compare to 2019. And again, despite all of those things that we did end up changing, 6-month comparison to 6-month comparison, we're actually up. Which is ridiculous. That's ridiculous. So, the training system has changed, the training model has changed, but so far it's working. And I think coming out of this, looking into 2021, going through this and being where I'm at right now has given me a ton of confidence, right? If you would have told me in 2019 what was ahead, that would have scared the life out of me. Okay, so just to wrap this up, 2020 compared to 2019, overall, we're going to be down. There's just no ifs and or buts about that. However, what we've done in the last 6 months, I think, has set us up into a really, really good place to start 2021. So the business is running extremely lean. Like, I've cut out a lot of excess fat, I guess you could say. Ooh, no pun intended. Cutting out fat in a gym video, right? But we've set ourselves up for a really positive 2021. Obviously, things can change, right? There's going to be a lot of change, again, nationally, probably locally again, in 2021. So this is certainly not a time to, kind of hit the cruise control or anything. Stay vigilant, stay aware, stay ready to move every single week, because we have no idea what is coming down the pipeline. If you guys have your own story about how you've changed your workflow, maybe you have a business, maybe you've changed your business. If you have a story about how your 2020 has been affected, I would love to hear about that. Again, I'm not shooting this video at all to brag or anything. I hope that it doesn't come off like that, because at the end of the day, we're not out of the woods. We're not clear and, free and clear. But I did want to share this just because I do think that it is important. I think that there was a lot of changes made. I think that scaling down and still matching revenue numbers is a massive lesson. And for me, like I said, I've got a lot of life to live outside of work and outside of the gym, and I've managed to find a kind of a life flow that meets both of those responsibilities. So, I'm personally in a really good place. The little kiddos are so much fun to hang out with. I get to spend a lot of time with them in the afternoons and in the evenings. And a year ago, my work schedule would not have allowed that. So there's a lot of positive things going on right now, and I want to share that, hopefully to end your year, on a little note of positivity. Please let me know if you have had lessons learned or changes in your 2020 year, and let's kind of build a community around this, and let's lift everybody up, and let's help each other out. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like this video, hit me with that thumbs down. I can handle it, I promise. Until next time, train hard, live full. See you in the next video.